Hello, winners, my weight loss winner friends. Welcome to this episode of Weight Loss Winformation, where I'm going to share with you some more great education and information to help you continue to win, or maybe start winning on your weight loss journey. Now, you have heard many episodes of this podcast before, even though this is only the second one, because this podcast was formerly known as Bari Aftercare, the podcast. So when you share the information about this podcast, let your friends and family know they can look up either Weight Loss Winformation Podcast or Bari Aftercare, the podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about that number. Why that number? And why does that number keep us captive? What number? Oh, you know what number I'm talking about. The number front and center in your brain, the number you think you should weigh. You know what happens when we should on ourselves, right? Just saying. Well, kind of makes me laugh because I was at Disney World this past weekend with my husband and one of my daughters and one of my grandkids, and we went to the Monsters Laugh Floor show, and the narrator of the show always refers to that guy. And the camera shows that guy. They focus in on somebody and they show that guy on the screen. And then they make references to that guy throughout the show, showing his picture on that screen every time. And my husband was that guy this time. So that number and that guy are not who you want to be. So last week's episode was all about coming up with a definition of a healthy weight for your body. And in case you haven't listened to that episode yet, I decided, and I'm hoping you are or will choose this as your personal definition of a healthy weight for your body. Here's what we came up with, at least we being I. A healthy weight for your body is a weight that you're living at that has everything to do with being able to do the things in life that you want to be doing, to minimize your health risks, and to live as long as you can to hang out with the people you love the most. So it's the best health, living at the best health for your body, doing the things you want to do, and living longer. If you don't like that definition, then I am again going to encourage you. Think about it. So even if you're fully on board with that definition, maybe just in theory, too often it's the case that a lot of people, including myself at one time, obsess about that number on the scale. So today we're going to take a deep dive into the reasons people pick that number and hold on to that number like it was Wilson. You know, Wilson from the Tom Hanks movie in Castaway. He hung on to Wilson. He clung on to Wilson. And there are reasons that, like Tom Hanks' character had to cling to Wilson desperately, a lot of us cling to this number on the scale. We forget about the things that we said were the reasons we wanted to lose weight in the first place, and we hang on to this absurd number. And there are reasons for it. So today we're going to dig in and explore what the reasons are that people appear to be more interested in that number than they actually are in their health. And I know that's not really true, but so many people have dieted for so long and they fall into this diet mentality and they cling to it. It's not a healthy thing to do, FYI. And it's something we want to work to get away from. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. And remember, most people, when they start out on a weight loss journey, they don't say, I'm losing weight because I want to be that number. So here are the main points for today. We're going to talk about the real reasons that people want to lose weight, just briefly, because we went over those in the last episode. But then we're going to really hone in on what the heck? What is this business of focusing in on that number and the signs that you may be doing that? You may be floating a boat on the river of Denial, the river in Egypt. So check this out. My geography is really bad, and I didn't want to embarrass myself when I did this podcast, so I literally looked up last night, and this is really embarrassing. I was like, is the Nile River in Egypt? And do you know what I found out? I'm glad I looked, because here's a little fun fact for you, a little trivia you can stump your friends with. Guess how many countries the Nile actually flows through? According to Dr. Google, it flows through 11 countries. So there you have it. And yes, Egypt is the one people most commonly think about. So there you go. So how to get out of that boat on denial and stay focused on living at a healthy weight for your body. That's what life is about. Living, not being number obsessed. So think about your real reasons, your genuine reasons. I call these your meaningful matters. What is so meaningful to you about your life that you would like to be at a lower weight or a healthier weight for your body? What matters to you so much that you're willing to put the time, effort, and resources into lowering your weight? People say, as we talked about last week, this is going to take 5 seconds. I'm not going to belabor this, but they want improved health. They want to ward off any impending health issues. They want to live longer. They want to play more. They want to do things they want to do. They want to feel better physically, emotionally. They want to feel better about how they look. All those things. Those are the real reasons people want to lose weight. And I'm sure if you're honest with yourself, your real reasons, your meaningful matters fall into those common categories. But way too often that reason or those reasons that are legitimate and valid and would make your life truly, truly better get pushed to the background, and that number takes center stage. Even when people, especially when people, and I do mean especially, because it's often the case when people meet their goals of being able to do things they want to do. They're much more active. They're doing the things they want to do with the people they love. They've increased their longevity by improving their health. And then that secondary thing of focusing on that number hits, and it hits hard, and people cling desperately to it. Why do we do that? And part of it is because we've been enculturated. I don't even know if that's a word, but we've been so deeply interwoven in this diet mentality that our country and our culture has. So the problem is, when we focus on weight loss, and even if it's part of a bigger plan, a bigger goal to boost our health, when we focus on the number, our behaviors automatically become number or weight focused instead of health focused. This is a problem. This is a problem, my friends, because we are not focusing on what we set out to focus on, and we become sidetracked. And this causes us then to neglect the behaviors, because we have to establish this healthy lifestyle. I don't care how you lose weight. The bottom line is that a healthy lifestyle is the only thing that's going to help you maintain that weight loss. Your body, especially if you have the disease of obesity, or if you believe in the set point, that our bodies are set to move to a certain weight. And definitely with the disease of obesity, if you fall into that category, our body is going to fight to return to that weight. I don't care if you're taking a GLP-1, if you've had a bariatric surgery, if you're doing whatever kind of weight loss program you're doing, your body is going to fight you. So the behaviors, the lifestyle behaviors, are the only thing that is going to help you to stay at a healthy weight as you lose weight. And if you're focused on that number, you're taking the focus off. These are the things I did to lose the weight, and these are the things I have to do to maintain the weight loss. So, people can become fixated on this ridiculous, and I do mean ridiculous, and if that hurts your feelings or ticks you off, well, then it hurts your feelings or ticks you off. But it is ridiculous to focus, and I know that's a judgmental word, and I am judging because it's not healthy to set your success on a number that has, you could get to a number and still, we'll get into that. It's not the number. It is about your health and your well-being, physical, mental, emotional, psychological. And these are the reasons sometimes that people become obsessed with those numbers, a combination of physical, psychological, and personal factors. So check this out. We lean toward focusing on the number rather than our health for some very interesting reasons, which I'm going to disclose right now. And when I was doing some reading and some research on this topic while preparing for the podcast, I found some great articles, and I will link those in the show notes. I think you're going to find them really helpful and very interesting. One of the articles that I found was from Psychology Today, and it's called, "Why do you say you want to lose weight, but then don't do it?" And then the subtitle is, "What to do when your intentions don't match your actions." And if you've listened to me or done much work with me, you know that most of my work is centered on focusing the gap between knowing what to do and doing what we do. Because a lot of times we're not doing the things that lead us to where we want to be and what's in that gap. So this article talks about that, what to do when your intentions don't match your actions. I intend to live at this healthy lifestyle, but my actions, I fall back into the old habits. I don't follow through. I lose my motivation. What's in that gap? Those are your obstacles. That's what we're looking to overcome. So the author of this particular article says, and I have experienced this myself, but her words are that she's worked with more patients than she can count. She says, who've looked me in the eye and said how much weight they want to lose. But then they seem to put in very little effort. Now, she said, you know what? Don't judge yourself on that. She doesn't say this. I'm saying this. And she says it in this way. She says, truth is, we all do this in one way or another. It's so easy for us to want something, whether it's a job promotion or to learn an instrument or to be in a relationship or to make the marriage work or to go to school. We want these things, but the doing of those things is so much more difficult. And some of the reasons that she says that people focus on a number, and this is all from that same article, which again, I said I would post. And it's not just from this article, it's from several of the articles that I've posted. There are societal and cultural pressures, and people come up with a number that they think will put them in the category to be accepted societally or culturally, because our culture obviously has an idealization of thinness. The media, the culture, we have this narrow and unrealistic standard of beauty. And we've talked about the internet and the social media that makes it so much more rampant. You can't get away from it. But this idealized standard of beauty, we equate thinness with success. We equate thinness with happiness and attractiveness. That is in our head. It's a societal norm. So we think, ooh, if I'm 110 pounds, or if I'm 130 pounds, or whatever that number is for you, we think if we can obtain that number, we're going to have success, happiness, and attractiveness. N-O-T, true, not true. Then we have social comparison. Yes, we do. You and I, we do that. We are so exposed to images of what we think are the perfect bodies. It's on social media, it's on television, it's in the movies, it's around the corner, it's all these platforms. You know what they make us feel? Inadequate. We feel dissatisfied. And so we have this number. And here's the reality, and this is what the author was saying. So many of my patients get to that number or are there for 5 minutes before they regain a little weight. And wherever their body lands, they're so dissatisfied and discouraged and unhappy, thinking, wait a minute, I got to the number, now where's the success? Hold on, I got to that number, but where's my wait a second, people aren't finding me that much more attractive. I don't find myself much more attractive. So where are the rewards for getting to that number? Those are some of the reasons we're obsessed and we hold on to that number and we focus on that number more than our health and our well-being and our activities. Psychological factors. Well, here's some that I think you especially want to pay attention to. We're all familiar with all those societal and cultural norms, right? We all say, I don't buy into that. I don't want to be that. I don't want to live, especially as we get older and we realize, the clock is not turning backwards. It ain't going to I'm never going to be 20 years old again, and I'll never have the skin of a 20-year-old. And that's a reality. So learning to accept those things, very important. All right, here's some of the psychological factors. One of them is this lack of confidence. I don't know how to do it. I don't have the skills. I was never taught to live a healthy lifestyle. Legit. Very legit. If you don't know, the good news is there are all kinds of places for you to learn today. That does require some effort on your part. But that's a legitimate reason. I don't know. I don't know what to do. So if I focus on that number, I don't have to focus on my feelings of inadequacy and lack of self-efficacy. Fear, one of the number one things that holds people back from going after what they want. So what if you did this little exercise? And this was in one of those articles. Imagine in as much detail what would happen if you achieve your goal exactly as planned. You got down to that weight, that number. Does it terrify you? Because it terrifies a lot of people. You think, oh my God, I'm going to get that success and that adulation and that woohoo when I get there. But the reality of that can be absolutely terrifying because some people are afraid of the things that might go wrong or might actually happen, and they're bad things. Like in the article from the Psychology Today, the woman said she's had a lot of patients who've worried about how uncomfortable they would feel with the attention they got when losing weight. I've done this work for 20 years. I hear it all the time. And believe it or not, the attention that people get, even though on one hand they really want it, it's like somebody notice me, somebody tell me I'm attractive, somebody tell me I'm worthwhile. But when they get it, it's like so frightening. It's like, I'd rather obsess on this number than deal with my fears. I'd rather regain some weight than deal with the fears of living through that because I'm terrified. Here's another reality for a lot of people. And I'm going to talk about these realities because people don't want to acknowledge this. Some people said that being thinner, all right, brace yourselves, might take away, and this is a quote, their long-standing excuse to not have sex. Ruh-roh. So some people use their weight as an excuse not to have sex. And maybe it's because they don't want to have sex. And maybe it's because they fear having a deeper relationship. And they're not ready to deal with that. So maybe they don't want to confront their fears of a close relationship because they don't have the skills. Maybe they don't want to confront the realities of having sex because maybe they got some baggage where that's concerned or other fears related to that. Other people have expressed to me that they fear getting to that number because they become very promiscuous when they lose a lot of weight. So while they can talk about wanting to be that number, they're going to stay as far away from that as possible because of what the reality related to that may mean, and it's terrifying for them. Another fear related to actually losing weight and reaching your true goals of a healthier lifestyle, longer life, and doing the things you want to do is the fear of that process. If I go on this weight loss adventure, if I develop these healthy habits, I fear I'm going to feel deprived. I'm going to fear I'm going to lose one of the things that brings me joy and happiness in my life, and that one thing is food. Or I'm afraid, I won't have time to do the other things in my life that I enjoy because, my God, there's going to be meal planning, there's going to be meal prep, and there's going to be exercising, and I'm just not going to have the other things in my life, and I fear losing those things. So, not that those feelings and those fears aren't legit. They are very, very, very legitimate. The truth is, though, they can be worked through with people who are trained to help you work through those things. But the fear of digging into my personal self, the fear of digging into my emotions surrounding those things is really scary. It's easier to focus on that number and to talk about that number as opposed to doing the work it takes to get to whatever number is good for your body. And then we have, of course, the fear of failure and the fear of success, the flip side of that. Because so many people have had tremendous weight loss, followed by tremendous regain. And that doesn't feel good. And sometimes people end up feeling worse about themselves when they regain weight than they did before they lost it in the first place. And that is a devastating cycle. So if you decide to do the whole weight loss journey, there is that chance that I'll never get to that number and then I'm going to really judge myself. Or I'm going to regain it and then maybe other people will judge me and I will judge me and I will feel worse than before. That's not a road a lot of people want to take. That's a big risk. It feels like a huge gamble and they're familiar with the world they're living in. They're not familiar or comfortable, nor do they want to take the risk to face those fears. Some people focus on the number rather than the health benefits because of resentment. Somebody else wants you to lose weight. Somebody else has done that. And you're resentful at the people who have done that and have managed to keep the weight off. Or you're resentful toward the person who has made comments about your weight. Or you're resentful at the person, maybe it's a partner or a parent or a sibling who's hounding you about this and you resent it. And so your defense is kind of like a passive-aggressive FU. And you may not even be aware of it yourself, but maybe you're carrying these resentments. Again, not unfathomable. Makes sense that you might resent somebody who's got what you have. It's human nature. Makes sense that you'd want to get back at somebody who's telling you what you need to do. However, it's not going to get you where you want to be, living that healthier lifestyle. So again, resentment can be addressed and worked through if you have the courage to face your emotions around that. Some people focus on the number, and this is a common one, I think, because it's a way to feel like they're in control. I did this when I was 19, 20 years old. I solely focused on that number. I had to have a decreasing number constantly. And this was a complete obsession because I felt like, I didn't feel like, that's not the right words. I felt out of control. I felt powerless against so many things that were happening in my life at that time and in my family. I didn't have the knowledge that that's what was going on in my head. But looking back and having been through tremendous amounts of personal therapy, I can understand that I felt really powerless. And so focusing on calories and calorie count and what I put in my mouth was one thing that I could control. And I worked hard and I would count those calories. And it kept me focused on a number which emotionally was 1,000 times easier to deal with the uncontrollable things that were happening in my world that I had no earthly idea how to cope with. So it was a coping skill, very unhealthy one, but maybe that's what the number is for you. It's a way to seek control and to feel like you have control when maybe there's so many other things in your life you don't have control over. And then there's, of course, where am I from? Jersey. Hello, all Jersey friends. I was just in Jersey a week and a half ago. Loved it. Had a really good time. Anyway, another reason to stay obsessed with that number is because that's how we're going to define success. And this saddens me so much because I've shared with you before that I've worked with people who have lost 50, 80, 130 pounds. What a tremendous success in terms of improving their health, doing the things they want to do, living that life they've wanted to. And yet, in their mind, they're not successful because of that number. It frustrates me to no end and hurts my heart. So when achieving this number is the primary focus, people quit looking at what they have succeeded in terms of improving their life. And it often leads to serious eating disorders, which definitely happened in my case, because we're connecting that number to worthiness. We're connecting that number to my value, my success, and it has nothing to do with anything. But a lot of people, because of our society, because of their parents, their mother, their aunts, whoever it was who may have been obsessed with their own weight or who may have been obsessed with your weight, they internalize this message. For sure, I did as a young teen. I internalized the message that being thin meant value as a person. Oh, that is tragic. And so many people still do, even though out of our mouth will come, I don't care what people think. I just want to live my life. And yet they lose the weight, they do the things, and they say, I haven't succeeded. I don't feel worthwhile. I haven't gotten that number, or I got to that number and now I'm 5 pounds above it. Oh my gosh, I just can't get back to that number. And I just feel like a loser. Oh, good Lord. It hurts my heart. And I want it to hurt your heart for yourself and others too, because it's such a waste of life, such a waste of your valuable and short, my friends, short life. We're not here for that long. Is that how you want to spend your time? You told me you wanted to spend your time doing the things you want to do with the people you love, so maybe we could get on with that. And then those staying body image issues, and we think, if I can lose more weight and get to that number, I'll love my body. How many people have lost weight, including myself, thinking that I was going to have this body that we all look at and go, oh my God, people are really born like that? Well, the truth is, some people are, but you know what? It's a teeny tiny percentage of people. And yet the rest of us, the other 95%, think if we get to a number, our body is somehow going to look like that. And it doesn't. I was that number, and I was way below that number. And it never looked like that 5% of body. Ain't going to happen, friends, for the vast majority of us. So thinking that our bodies are going to look like that at that number, we are delulu. We are fooling ourselves, and we are struggling with body image issues, which need to be treated outside of the weight loss journey. And I found this comment and I loved it. I loved it. Okay, check this out, because this hit home hard for me. Here's what it said. I'm reading. Have you ever caught yourself saying you feel fat? Deep down, fat is code for something else, like insecurity, guilt, loneliness, etc. Because fat is not an emotion. We have just learned to associate it with negative things. Now there is some truth. There is a great deal of wisdom. Have you ever said you feel fat? I swear to God, I say it 20 times a week. I got to get over that. Okay, it's not that much anymore, but it used to be. It probably was 20 times a day. And this is one of the things that I harp on with people. And if you're coming to the retreat this next week, I'm going to be harping on it here. Because when we say I feel, then we need to put a feeling word to follow. I feel sad. I feel excited. I feel inspired. I feel discouraged. A feeling word comes after the phrase I feel. But here's what we do. We insert a thought. I feel fat. I feel like you're a jerk. I feel like that makes no sense. I feel like that's not a feeling. And I get it. It's a particular, seems petty, but if you really get down to it and pay attention to when you say I feel, express an emotion. For one thing, it gets us in touch with our feelings, and fat is not a feeling. Sad, discouraged, frustrated, joy-filled, those are feelings. So saying I feel fat, you might want to take out the word fat and put in a real emotion. When you say I feel fat, the reality might be I feel discouraged. When you say I feel fat, the reality may be I feel insecure. When you say fat, it might be I feel unloved, unworthy, not valued. So think about that. And that is a critical piece for most people when it comes to working through getting rid of that number so that you can discover what's really going on and work on that instead. Enough said about that for right now. So if we could focus more on how we feel than the way we look or the amount the scale tells us, we would really be onto something and there would be a lot of healing going on. A lot of people are afraid to do that. I don't want to dig deep. And that's one of the reasons we focus on the number on the scale, because digging deep, examining your life, looking at what the real problems are. Yeah, your weight may be a real problem when it comes to your health and your social life and how you feel about yourself. I'm not saying that that is not a real problem. I'm just saying that that is usually one of the problems that's a cluster of those other things. Feeling unlikable, feeling lonely because you don't have friendships. They may be related to your weight, so we need to focus on the weight and the other issues. It's a cluster of things, not just the weight. So we need to focus on the weight, and we need to focus on the emotions surrounding how your weight is negatively affecting your life. I'm sure that doesn't make sense, or I'm sure that that does make sense depending on where you are in your journey. All right, another reason that we tend to focus on the number is because so many of us live with unrealistic expectations or misguided motivations. And we've talked about the misguided motivations in terms of if I lose the weight, if I get to this number, I'm going to be successful and happy, and I'm going to have the body of that 2% of the people, 2 to 5% of the people. Unrealistic. It's not realistic. When I do evaluations for people on weight loss journeys, I say, what is your goal? You know, what are you hoping to do in terms of weight? And especially when it comes to bariatric surgical procedures, people think, oh, I'm going to lose this much weight and then I'm going to be happy. And I say, first of all, you're not going to lose that much weight. It's very unlikely. It could happen, but there are statistics that go along with the various surgery different types of surgery. Same is true for GLP-1s. There are statistics on how much weight people lose. And yet, it's like, okay, give me the magic pill, give me the magic shot, give me the magic surgery. I'm going to get down to that number and then watch me be happy. What a misguided approach, because it's going to leave you deflated emotionally. Maybe your skin too, but that goes along this misguided expectation that you're going to be happy when you lose weight. Maybe you'll be happier in some arenas, but the bottom line issues that you have are the bottom line issues that you have. So you've got to work through those issues regardless of what weight you are. I'll tell you, when I was young, still in that anorexic phase of my life, I just needed to escape. I needed to escape my reality. Losing weight and counting numbers was one of the ways I tried to control the things that felt so out of control to me and that I could not handle emotionally because I did not have the coping skills. So I decided I would run away. I would run away and I would go to Europe. I was in college. I could get a student loan to take this 6-week-long summer trip. And so that's what I did. And I went away with a group of like 40 other kids from around the country. And we took this, what could have been a really amazing trip through Europe. And it was amazing in a lot of ways. But in my quest to numb myself and to not be fully present and not to feel and not to think, not only did I starve myself and count calories, I drank myself into oblivion and I ran away as far as I could possibly get at that time to escape my reality. And so rather than focusing on what would truly make me happier, which would be working through the issues, going to therapy, figuring out I'm running in every way I can possibly think of, because the reality of my life is too big for me to deal with. I don't have the skills. Somebody help me. So I discovered that when I went to Europe and when I got down to a ridiculously low weight and when I was numbed out of my mind with alcohol, all my problems came with me. And boy, what a bummer that reality was. And so my point in sharing that with you is that when you get down to that weight, a weight below that weight, or a weight remotely close to that weight, whatever issues you have that are not weight related, you still got them. And while you may have an increased sense of how you look and feel and some confidence that way, and I love that for you, and I hope that for you, if you've got relationship issues or mommy issues or daddy issues or sibling issues or job issues or friendship issues, they're not going away because you're at a certain weight. And until you deal with those issues, it doesn't matter. You can focus on that number and spend your whole life trying to attain it, but none of your issues are going away. So you got to work on those separately from weight, because what you're doing is you're focusing on your exterior world, your exterior shell of a body, rather than what's going on inside of you. And losing weight doesn't change a whole lot about what's going on inside of you. Yes, temporary confidence. Yes, it may be permanent confidence in relation to certain things, but it doesn't change a whole lot about what is going on inside of you. And then, of course, we cling to that number in spite of our genetics, some of which we can't control. And we talked about that last week. So rather than accepting that a healthy weight for my body is not that number that I've chosen in my head, other people, on the other hand, go the other route with this genetic thing. They're like, well, you know what? Everybody in my family's overweight, and it's a genetic thing, so there's nothing I can do about it anyway, which is not true. Because while you have a genetic predisposition for things, it doesn't mean that you are absolutely gonna be the weight that all your aunts, uncles, and female cousins are. You're gonna be the weight you're gonna be given the effort that you're putting into dealing with your genetic reality. So also keep in mind that even though genetics is one part of your family, families also share eating patterns. Families also share how we celebrate. Families also share grocery shopping habits. So we got to take a lot of that into account. For example, my family members tend to die fairly young, which, I ain't getting any younger myself. I've outlived my father already. And so that weighs on the back of my mind. And I have a lot of people who remind me my lifestyle is so much healthier than a lot of aunts, uncles, and cousins. There's a lot of drinking, there's a lot of smoking, there's a lot of debauchery in my extended family. I have chosen to live substance free. I have chosen to follow a healthy food diet. I have chosen to be a regular exerciser. And so hopefully those things will work in my favor. I still have genetics that affect my health. As I mentioned last week, I take blood pressure medicine. Based on my lifestyle, that shouldn't be a thing. Based on my genetics, it is. So my lifestyle improves what could be a whole lot worse. And that's the way it is also with weight a lot of times. So here's the bottom line. If you're letting a number on the scale or the number in your head determine or constrain how you feel about yourself in any way, shape, or form, that is a sadness. It's impeding your capacity for experiencing joy. It's impeding your capacity for doing the things you say you want to do. And it is limiting your relationship closeness. You may or may not want to believe that, but it is. It's like one of the things that I do at retreats is if you and your sister, your mother, your partner, your children, you have a close relationship. But I point out by standing two people up and sticking a pillow in between them. This pillow represents your obsession with weight. This pillow represents your shopping addiction. This pillow represents your alcohol consumption. So while you're close, there is this thing in between you. So you're not as close as you could be. Some people fear that closeness, and so they keep that pillow there on purpose. But that's a reality. So you are getting in your own way by focusing your own way of full happiness, or as happy as you can be. And a weight, a number, the color of your hair, the height of your body, whether you have one arm or two arms or no arms, does not determine your value as a person. I talk about that ad nauseum. If you're allowing that to be determined by what you think is a number you will find that at, you're very misguided. All right, bottom line, when we choose a number on the scale as our goal, we are neglecting what you said at the beginning of your journey that you wanted, what I call meaningful matters. What matters to you about your weight and your health and your life? What has the most meaning to you? If we focus on that, then we can focus on the things that do help, because that number ain't going to help. We can focus on developing the healthy lifestyle. We can focus on finding ways we enjoy movement. We can focus on reducing our reliance on shopping or other things that also impede our happiness. We can improve our sleeping routine, all the things that help us develop that healthy lifestyle. So when the goal is a number, you're thinking short term. I want that number, then I'll be happy. Think long term. Think short and long term, because you want to live fully. You want to spend your time, whatever amount of time that is, as healthy and as happy as you can. Focusing on a number prevents you from the fullness you can enjoy. So, what sustainable habits can you work on that will provide for you long-term health and happiness. It ain't about a number. All right, so I'm going to list real quickly here some signs that you may be on that boat floating in denial. You may think, well, I'm not the one that's focusing on my number. There are clues that can point you and or your loved ones in a direction that, while you may not be naming a number, you are focused on things besides your health and your living. All right, so here we go. Thinking weight loss can solve your problems is immediately a red flag. So you're probably not going to acknowledge this to yourself or anyone else, but maybe in the back of your mind. I've had so many people tell me, I thought I'd be happy when I lost. They don't say that until they've lost the weight, but they haven't lost the weight they think they need to. Or they lose the weight and they're like, but I'm still not happy. So if there's a part of you that thinks losing weight's going to solve your problems, that is a red flag that you're losing weight for the wrong reasons and you may be focusing on the number. If you think in terms of food as being good or bad, that's another red flag that you're focusing on the wrong things. And this has been incorporated into so many diets and diet cultures and diet mentality and the way people talk about food. If you use that language, or if people point out to you that you are using that language, what it's pointing out is that you're judging. Not only are you judging food, but you're judging yourself. I ate bad food, therefore I am bad. Today I ate all that bad food. And we give food too much importance and we link it too much with our value as a human being. So that's a red flag. Another red flag is if you avoid a lot of foods. I never eat carbs, or I never eat this, or I never eat sugar. Now, there are good reasons not to eat carbs or sugar if you are a food addict and it affects your brain chemistry. But if that's not an issue for you, if you're avoiding a lot of foods, what you're doing is depriving your body of a lot of nutrients. Now, with bariatric surgeries, some of them require vitamins because there is malabsorption of nutrients. That's why it's imperative that you listen to your doctor and your dietitian and you take those vitamins. Not a bad idea regardless, right? But we don't want to deprive ourselves of fiber. We don't want to deprive ourselves of healthy carbs because our brain needs carbs to function healthy. And if you're staying away from a lot of different foods, then you may be on the road to an eating disorder or maybe engaging in some form of disordered eating. You know, those forbidden foods. It's kind of like the bad food kind of thing. Here's a big red flag. If you're skipping social functions because you're afraid you're going to eat things that are there, or if you're isolating because you don't want to be seen at your current weight or whatever it is that's keeping you from skipping these things that's related to food or weight, then you are really closing off your life, and isolation is not healthy. What we do when we isolate a lot of times is start falling into a deep abyss of self-pity. Other people don't have to do this. Other people can go to events and not worry about what they eat. Other people can go and they don't seem to mind what they look like. Other people can go and we start feeling sorry for ourselves. And that is going to get you into a pit of depression and resentment and misery. So if you start isolating yourself, that's a huge red flag. And if it's in relation to food or your weight, you really need to seek out some support. And feeling like you're all alone in this journey. Everybody else seems to be able to eat what they want and not gain weight. It's not true. Most people, people are like, I hate that skinny bee. Let me tell you, that is a very unhealthy thing to say or do to a person, just as unhealthy as somebody judging people who are overweight. Because you don't know, maybe that skinny bee works really hard to be physically fit. Maybe that skinny bee has an eating disorder and is miserable. Maybe that skinny bee would love to put on some weight because they think that would make them happy. I mean, you don't know. Just like you don't like people making assumptions about your weight, don't make assumptions about others. That's just a little side road that irks me to no end. All right, but the point is, if you're feeling like you're all alone in this journey, the truth is the vast majority of people who live at a healthy weight have to work really hard at it. And even people who other people may be judging as overweight are working super hard to maintain that weight. So we don't get to judge anybody for their weight. We're not in their shoes. We don't know their genetics. We don't know what kind of psychological things they're dealing with. We don't get to judge. Now, it's a great thing to work out and to be physically active. But if your workout is top priority and you're not skipping that no matter what, no matter when, that could be a sign of exercise addiction, because there is a thing called exercise bulimia, where people work out to the point that they're half crazed about it. And if they don't work out, they are frenzied. Now, I like to work out, but I'm not going to, miss out on a lot of things. I'll work out another day, or I'll work out longer a different day. But I am, people can develop this compulsive or addictive relationship with exercise, and it can become rigid, and that also is not healthy. Here's another red flag that maybe you're looking at the wrong reasons to be losing weight. You always know the next and latest fad diet. What's the popular thing now? Worse is if you're spending hours doing the things or reading about the next diet or reading about a lot of people, when they lose weight, they start reading all the food magazines and they start watching all the food shows, and it's another way of keeping your life focused on food. You want to get away from the diet mentality. Sure, you want to focus on your food and you want to get healthy recipes, of course. That's not what I'm saying. I had a professor who used to say, don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying don't pay attention to healthy recipes. I'm not saying don't spend some time planning your food or preparing your food. What I'm saying is, if you're spending hours a day watching the Food Network or watching, or spending hours looking at recipes, it's not that different than having an obsession, an unhealthy obsession with anything else that takes too much of your time at the expense of living your life or tending to your important things in life or the important people in your life. Just if other people are like, my God, you spend so much time, blah, 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 you might want to take a look, because blah, 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 blah may be interfering and may be an unhealthy obsession. Here's another one, and this one stopped me in my tracks too. Oof. This has been something that I, along with a lot of other people, have struggled with. Again, much more so in years past, but it'll still snag me once in a while. You spend a lot of time observing other people's physical features, and then you make assumptions. They can eat anything they want and never gain weight. You're assuming that their size or their shape is the most important thing about that person. And it's really that you're obsessed with your own and you're comparing yourself. Are my hips bigger than hers? Are my thighs bigger than hers? Are my arms bigger than hers? Is my neck bigger than theirs? And it's likely that you're criticizing people for their food. Look at them drinking soda. What are they thinking? Maybe it's the one soda they've had in 6 years and it's Sprite because they have a messed up stomach. Who knows? But if you judge people like, oh my God, they're eating pasta. Can you believe that anybody would eat pasta? Do they not know it's made with white flour? Oh my God. That kind of thing, which I have been guilty of back in the day. And now I'm just like, be mindful. Eat what you want. Be mindful so that you're healthy and you're living a healthy life and you're doing the things you want, blah, 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 and you're blah, blah, blah. All right. If you find ways to prevent yourself from eating, chewing gum. Nothing wrong with chewing gum. Some people can't chew it because they've had surgery, they have teeth issues or whatever, but if you're chewing gum to try to quiet hunger pangs, which some people say it actually increases them, or if you're drinking a lot of coffee, or if you're drinking a lot of water so that you're not hungry, again, nothing wrong with drinking water unless it interferes with your health or living a healthy lifestyle. Just like food trackers, they can be a great thing. In fact, there's a lot of research that says keeping track of what you eat is the number one way to maintain weight. However, people can become addicted to tracking everything too. That is not healthy. Or comparing. How many steps did you get? How many steps did you get? And then judging themselves. Oh my God, I didn't get enough steps. I'm probably going straight to hell. I didn't get enough steps. Another sign is you feel less valuable or less lovable if you're at a lower weight. Cultural thing, we talked about it. But if you define yourself as more valuable at a lower weight, that's a problem. It's a red flag. All right. So if you noticed yourself in any of those red flags that say, I'm not focusing on my health, I'm not focusing on the things I said mattered to me, but I'm focusing on these other things, those are red flags that this is not the healthiest mindset or the healthiest goal. So how do you get out of that boat? How do you get out of your own denial? How do you stay focused on living a healthy weight? Well, clearly we need support. We need people who are willing to say to us, okay, enough with the calorie counting. Okay, enough with the tracking. Okay, enough with the refusing to eat whatever. People who will say, I'm worried you seem to be obsessed about whatever. So having people who will support you and saying, wait a minute, you told me that you wanted to be healthier, you wanted to be off medications. You're off all of your medications. Why this switch to that number? People who are willing to be that honest, loving, and caring about you, who want you to be healthy and happy, not just at a number. What is the root of the problem there? Try to dig down and go, this number is not the issue. There's something else going on. So you might need to recognize that understanding the deeper issues and knowing that there is some truth to the fact that you may be hindering your ability to lose weight because there are other issues that are keeping you stuck at a higher weight. Fear. I'm afraid to lose the weight because of this. If you're not aware of that, if you're not willing to go there, that may be an overall hindrance to your losing weight for health reasons. So understand that probably digging deeper with the help of somebody is important. Recognizing those fears, talking through them. Talk to people who have been down that road. Yes, peers and professionals are critical in your journey to understanding, oh, gosh, I do that too. Oh, you went through that? How did you get past that? Get ideas from people because they probably have a lot of good experience. That's why programs like the 12 steps are great, because people have been through the same kind of struggles that you are, and they've learned ways to navigate through the challenges. And they're very willing. As you know, the bariatric community is wonderful in terms of helping each other in these social programs that are online and in person. So recognize that. And then listen to people if they're like, that's not a very realistic goal. You know, it's probably not real healthy for you to focus on eating 600 calories. Or it's not very realistic for you to think you're going to run 5 miles every single day of your life. Help people set healthy goals. Remind people if you see them being unhealthy with their goals, and invite people to share with you. I don't know if that's a real healthy goal. How about we look at something more geared toward your overall health or your activity, not the number. And have people in your life that remind you, and give yourself a good stern talking to sometimes that, regardless of what society says, I have value and worth regardless of all those other factors, because we do. And try to think about food as being fuel for your body, but also nutritious. You can enjoy food and have fun with your food and live a healthy lifestyle too. It doesn't have to be one or the other. You don't have to eat all the crap in the world. You can have a little bit of the crap in the world and have a lot of really good, healthy food, focusing on your health, focusing on your living, focus on how you feel. I feel healthy. I feel joy-filled. I feel ready to go out there and do the things I want to do. I feel proud of myself for, increasing the probability of a longer life. Let's measure our success on health-centered goals. How's your health? Are you doing the things that you want to do? Have you increased the likelihood of living a longer life to be with those people that you love doing them with? When we're number-centered, we're not health-centered. So let's focus more, that's the bottom line, on being health-centered. So here is your Winformation adventure for this week, your Winformation personal task. Seriously, make a list, an actual written out list or on your phone, of the reasons you said at the beginning you wanted to lose weight, or the reasons you now want to lose weight. And I am almost certain that they're about your health, your longevity, your ability to do things. And then if you find yourself thinking about that number or any of those red flags I just went through, stop and remember, you don't want to be that guy like my husband was that guy. You don't want to be that person focused on that number. You want to be the person that focuses on living healthy and being healthy. So make that list of your meaningful matters, post them somewhere you can see them, and refer to them often, because a lot of times it's just changing and tweaking our thinking to be health focused rather than number focused. So I hope that you will share with me through the podcast comments what you liked and what you didn't like about today's topic, where that's going to help lead you, if it's going to help you, if there are things you object to. I want to hear about that too, because I ain't got all the answers, but I'm listening to you. I want to know what you want to hear more about, and I will be back next week. And I hope that you, weight loss winners, will join me for the next episode of Weight Loss Winformation, the podcast. Remember, you can also find past episodes at Berry Aftercare, the podcast. And please join the online program at www.bariaftercare.com. Thanks for joining me and spending your time together. See you next time. Bye.